Welcome into episode number 125 of The Voice Behind the Voice. I'm Sean Aronson, the TV and radio broadcaster for the St. Paul Saints, an independent minor league baseball team in the Twin Cities. Well, we are right almost smack dab in the middle of 25 consecutive games over 25 consecutive days and playing good. We're at home. We finish a weekend series coming to you on Sunday, August the 5th, and playing well. Half game now out of the second playoff spot, 2 games out of first place. This is the most exciting time of the year. Scoreboard watching, every game that much more important than the one before. This is what you get down towards the end, and you hope that your team is in it. And so far we are. We'll see how it goes day by day and week by week as I bring you these episodes. Which leads me to this. This is the last new episode that I have in the can right now. We've talked about this before. During the baseball season, it becomes increasingly more difficult to sit down and get these chats. It's based upon if the Twins are in town when we're in town, and then grabbing the opposing broadcasters, because I've done all the Twins guys, and at some point it wasn't going to work out. I think I had 8 or 9 in the can by the time the baseball season started. I've been able to get about 3 or 4 chats or interviews, maybe a little bit more during the course of the season, but I've run out. That's it. Now, the good news is I think the Pirates come into town next week, but it's going to be after we release an episode. So I'm working on that, trying to land someone with the Pirates, and then you've got NFL preseason, so trying to land stuff there. And look, the success rate isn't always 100%. It's not always going to be 100% in terms of just reaching out to a team and grabbing a broadcaster. There are a lot of factors that go into it. So what I'm telling you is next week there is a 99.8% chance that we're going to run an episode that's already run, which is fine. Look, we've done 125 of these. That's 125 consecutive weeks of a brand new episode. Even TV shows don't run 125 consecutive weeks of new episodes. So we may run a rebroadcast next week, which is fine because a lot of people out there haven't listened to all 125 of them. So I'm going to go back. I'll talk with my producer, J.W. Cox, figure out which one we want to re-air. Maybe it'll be one of my favorites. Maybe it'll be one that I think people should have listened to, but not a lot of people did listen to. We'll figure that out. But unless I can pull magic out of my hat, and I don't think that's going to happen because we're in Sioux Falls the next 3 days, and Sioux Falls has nothing within like a million miles of anything close to a major league broadcaster or anyone like that. And then when we come home, we'll be home for 10 days. Over the weekend, the Twins are on the road. There's nobody in town. I think the Vikings start their preseason, but I believe they start on the road. So it's not going to be possible is what I'm telling you. So I'm just forewarning everybody for next week that's probably going to be the case. But for this week, episode number 125, I had the distinct pleasure and opportunity to sit down with Tom Hedrick. Now, a lot of people out there may have seen this episode and said, Tom Hedrick, I'm not familiar, or they just heard me say it, and they're like, I don't know who that is. Tom Hedrick, if there were a tree of broadcasters out there, Tom Hedrick would be the guy where a number of great broadcasters came from. You remember I sat down with Brian Haney, who does KU basketball. Tom Hedrick taught at Kansas for a long time, and he was a long-time broadcaster before that, but he taught at Kansas some of the greatest broadcasters out there, and so the tree of broadcasters, if you will, start from Tom Hedrick. And the stories that this guy has, I mean, he broadcast Super Bowl I. He was working as the broadcaster for the Kansas City Chiefs back then and tells this great story of how he wound up on the Super Bowl broadcast for Super Bowl I. I think he did Super Bowl I, II, and IV. You have to check back and whenever the Chiefs were in the Super Bowl. But he did them on the national platform. He talks about Wilt Chamberlain. He talks about Gale Sayers, a great story about teaching Gale Sayers how to read. But this guy was a longtime broadcaster for a number of different teams. So just because you may not be familiar with him, the stories are unbelievable, and you're going to get a lot out of us. Not only that, but we were in Kansas City to play the T-Bones, and I went to his house in Lawrence. He and his wife, unbelievably gracious people to allow me into their house, and we just sort of sat there, him in his sort of recliner chair, me in the recliner chair next to him, and just two guys chatting about his career. It was absolutely incredible. If you've not subscribed to the podcast, you can do so on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also follow us on social media, on Twitter at TheVoiceBTV, Facebook, facebook.com/TheVoiceBTV, and you can always email me, thevoicebtv@gmail.com. All right, let's get to it. Episode number 125 with Tom Hedrick. JW, roll the open.
I've got Gail in my office. He can't read and write. I'm going to teach him how to do that. I'll keep him eligible. Is that okay with you? Sure. So he came to our house every Wednesday at 7 o'clock, he and his wife, Linda, and then he would come back Sunday at 3. And we would read from a first and third grade primer. Now, he got a master's degree, and I always used to tell him, I said, of all the things you did on a football field, and you're the best I ever saw, bar none, I said, I'm more proud of the fact that you learned how to read and write and got the education.